Hi, everybody. This is Tony Heil with ALS United Mid-Atlantic, and this is our ALS United Mid-Atlantic Goals podcast. If you've listened to our past episodes, and I hope you have, they're all available on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. You know that we've talked to people from a variety of perspectives when it comes to ALS. We talked to people who are living with ALS, doctors, caregivers, other advocates, staff here at ALS United Mid-Atlantic, because when it comes to this disease, it is important for us to be supporting people with ALS from all angles. And everyone has their own unique story to tell. One of those people who has their own unique story to tell is my new friend, Raziel Green. She is living with a genetic form of ALS. And as we've talked about on the podcast, some people have that, but most people have a sporadic form of ALS. Thankfully, we have new treatments that are available now that have been approved and are only available because of years of research and understanding of this disease. Your work, whether you've been fundraising, spreading awareness, or being an advocate or volunteering, has led to some successes in the ALS world. And that's something that wasn't true years ago when I first got involved with this disease with my grandfather. I'm excited to talk to Raziel about her experience with ALS, the hope of this new treatment, and maybe what it can mean for others living with ALS, because this is the start to more progress. So Raziel, thank you so much for talking today.
Thank you for having me.
So Raziel, we talked a little bit. You have a familial form of ALS. Tell me what that is and what people should know.
So it's familial ALS SOD1, and that's how I got to participate in Boston regarding the Toferson / Qalsody medicine, and the trial was for 7 years.
So it took 7 years that you were in the trial?
Yes. And
That's
3
incredible.
years prior to that was me trying to get diagnosed.
When you were trying to get diagnosed, because it's familial for you, what were the symptoms that kind of clued you off that something is amiss here with my body?
Seeing my mother go through it with the loss of muscle on her lower extremities was a sign. However, we always want to get confirmation from our neurologist and other doctors. However, I didn't get that lucky. I was told from my first neurologist just to go back to the gym. It was nothing. That doesn't mean that I have it. However, I was running, and I wouldn't say an avid runner, but I've done a few years of that and enjoyed it. And I found out by one day in 2014, after dropping off my children, to go for a morning run, and I felt really heavy. So I changed my routine as far as my exercises. I went, I did this whole cycling thing, more weights, until fast forward 3 months after, I was having issues going up the stairs in front of my home. And that's when I wanted to seek help and see a neurologist to see what they could find. And tests after tests after tests. My second neurologist treated me and helped me try to figure out what was wrong for 2.5 years. So a little under 3 years, I was, trying to figure out what was really wrong with me, because no concrete answers were given to me until I was forwarded to another neurologist who was in the research department in Montefiore in New York. And my second neurologist was humble enough to let me know that she couldn't find anything for me and she couldn't help me anymore, even though it was a genetic form that I've been telling them because of my mother and her half-sister. So fast forward to Montefiore, it was a simple blood work. I was just informed that it would take 2 to 3 months. So by the time 2017 rolled around, I was positive for SOD1. And a few months later, my doctor from Montefiore was involved in the research study regarding Toferson that Biogen was involved in, and that's how it got connected to MGH in Boston.
That's incredible. And it reminds me that I've heard this a few times, especially with women who have ALS. There's still discrimination in healthcare with doctors and neurologists, doctors of all kinds not fully trusting the symptoms that people experience, especially women. From my experience, I have a friend whose wife had ALS, and it was also familial, and it took her well over a year to be diagnosed, but she knew from her own family that no, this is what it is. She knew her body better than they did. And you have your experience. Is that something that you have seen as well, that maybe people need to take these symptoms more seriously?
Yes, I am in touch with a friend now who ended up, unfortunately, testing positive for SOD1 as well, but it took him pretty much the same amount of time. I noticed also that there's a pushback from medical providers. One of the things that I started advocating for this is because I mean, at the time, I felt like nobody was listening to me. And we have a voice. We know our body. Who knows our body than ourselves? And I felt that medical providers weren't taking the information enough to help us out. I mean, it
Mhm.
is a disease that very time sensitive once we're diagnosed. However, in the beginning, it's very challenging to figure out what was really wrong based on whatever symptoms that, all of us ALS patients have. So that was one thing that I really wanted to focus on is for medical providers to really hone in on what we're going through, even if it's not something that they're familiar with. It's not something that I don't want to say cookie cutter, but it's not something that, okay, it's this, it's just not that easy, and it's very challenging. So we just, want to suggest medical providers to really listen to us.
Well, people have been listening to you because they took you and helped you get into a study for Toferson, which is what it was called at the time, because it wasn't an approved drug yet. So, how did you get involved in that clinical trial many years ago?
It started with Montefiore when I was suggested, I was pretty much forwarded there to get my blood work done. And he was familiar with what MGH was, you know, I guess soliciting SOD1 patients. And that's when I had to go to Boston and pre-qualify, pretty much have an interview, get evaluated. That happened about 2 visits. And after I was, cleared to participate in Boston, that's when they thoroughly informed me what Biogen was doing and what, it entailed and whatnot. So I was blessed enough to be a part of the trial because it was in the beginning phase of it. And up until, the first 6 months, it's placebo, it's 50-50. So I got involved in that, and the rest was pretty much history. It was a commitment that I, wanted to do. I have 2 children of my own, so that was the huge motivation for me. The children were still young at the time, and then I also have siblings. My mom and my aunt, obviously wasn't. Unfortunately, they lived in the Philippines at the time, so they didn't have the opportunity to be a part of it. So it's something that I wanted to commit and was passionate and still is passionate about. With awareness of this drug that's I have now commercially at Penn.
And so, what did that entail about being in the trial? Because, how many people were involved? Did you know any of the other people involved?
The protocol, we weren't allowed,
Right.
obviously because of the trial. It was every month, every 28 days, I would go to MGH, and it was a lumbar puncture. Not, every month is always different. There's always going to have adverse events, being in the trial. However, Biogen was very accommodating. They really made it easy for ALS patients to to be involved in the study, and just the staff and Biogen like really worked closely together to make this all happen. And it was something that, believe it or not, it was something that I wanted to do every month, along with my friends and family who supported me to the whole entire, 7 to 7.5 years of it every single month, even throughout COVID. It's, always a risk of flying or, um, to travel to Boston. However, it was something that, I got my family involved, and they were also passionate, and none of this would have happened if they didn't support me.
Well, I'm sure when you're doing a drug trial for ALS and it's taking years, that has to have some effect on your own psyche because you realize this must be doing something, right? Because you probably felt the effects or didn't feel the effects of ALS and the drug, right? Because I've read the things you've shared with me about how the drug has impacted you. You probably had a different expectation of how things would be with ALS without the drug, right? Because you knew about ALS. So, when did you start realizing this might be helping me?
The first 6 months, I had no idea if I had the actual drug or placebo. And part of the trial was the washout period for 4 months. Within those 4 months, I went from holding somebody's arm to get around on a daily basis while walking. And after the washout period, during this washout period, I should say, I went from holding somebody to having a full time having a cane in order to get around. So there was definitely weakness there. I just found out a month and a half ago or so. My doctor from MGH called me that I didn't have the drug for the first 6 months, which was really interesting to me because of the progression that I did have within the washout period. So after that, fast forward to the open label of the trial, I ended up getting the treatment consistently after that, up to the maximum of 100 um, of the drug, which was the maximum. And after that, I was stable this whole entire time. Even less than a year, I did not get worse. And it's been 8 years this May, been part of the trial and getting the Toferson Qalsody consistently, commercially. And I have not gotten worse. So it's something that I wouldn't be here if I wasn't forwarded as far as my information and being introduced to the trial in the beginning of all this, because it's something that I am thankful for because of my family as well. Because seeing my son graduate, seeing my daughter graduate college, seeing all the milestones in my life, and still being part of the family that were here. It's available for them if they opt to get tested. So it's something that was the goal for me. It was something that I wanted to do for my family. Again, my aunt and my mom didn't have access to any of this. So really thankful to be a part of it.
And so we're recording this in the middle of 2025 now. And how long have you been on the active drug?
Since July. It'll be a year next month, as far as getting the drug commercially.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
And
I see another neurologist clinically. I just had actually my appointment yesterday, and everything, thankfully, has been the same and stable ever since. So it's
and
something that I
so
want everyone to know, as far as whoever could benefit from it, as far as familial, and it's specifically for SOD1.
and as you know, and I know, and all of us in the ALS community know, ALS is such a diverse disease because it could impact people in different ways, whether they have the familial form, the SOD1 mutation, as you said, or other kinds of ALS. Um, and so, do you know how they were measuring the success of the drug and how it's working versus not working from one person to another? Like how they knew, okay, this is effective because clearly you've been seeing benefits.
Right. Although I didn't have the full data of everyone else involved, I knew from my experience being that, with the phase, with the washout period, because of the trial, they check you before you get dosed, after you get dosed, and, the efficacy of the drug. So those were like the minor things that I was informed. And of course, how I was doing physically. I know everybody's, different, and individually everyone has a different side effect of the drug. However, I can speak for myself how this drug really did not have any side effects. So it was one thing that I knew I wasn't getting worse, because we all know it's such a time sensitive, and the progression of this disease without the medicine, I knew I was going to get worse. So knowing that, being in the trial, I saw huge difference between the washout period versus getting the infusion, the treatment consistently every month. So it's one of those things that, okay, I don't know how everybody else are doing, because, during the trial, we weren't really allowed to have those kind of information and data. However, I knew for myself, this drug works, and it's consistent, and it's something that I want to continue to share and make, everyone aware about this drug.
And you've been sharing a lot. You've been in the news. You've been on podcasts, not including this one, uh, spreading word about your involvement in clinical trials and about this drug in general. What message do you want to get out into the world about ALS and research and all of this stuff that you've been participating in?
I want to let everyone know that, it's really an honor to be a part of a trial. I know there's a lot of risks, and it's something that we could gain so much more in the medical world. And it's something that, you know what, unfortunately, I have ALS. However, I wanted to do something about it and be a part of something. And maybe some people out there who are reluctant to take the drug or be a part of the trial, it's just the whole awareness thing I want. And also to advocate for yourself. And being part of the trial, it's something that I am doing now and hopefully continue to do, and advocate for other people out there who might have a few questions about being in the trial and or receiving the drug right now, which is FDA approved. So advocacy and awareness is something that I am passionate about. I was reluctant in the beginning as well, so I'm becoming very comfortable, making everyone aware and what's available out there. There's so many resources out there. Obviously, ALS United Mid Atlantic. So it's just been a pleasure to work with everyone and to share this. It's just an honor.
And it's important that we have more diverse participants in research, because science needs to see how ALS is impacting people who are different. If it's all the same kind of person and all the same kind of symptoms, then the people who experience ALS differently or came to ALS differently, they might not benefit from the drug. So imagine, with your awareness, you want to spread the word, cast that net as wide as possible.
Yes.
So more different kinds of people participate in research as well.
Yes, it has to be diverse. It could be from anything. Right now, there's so many trials out there that I'm still involved and just ended one. So it's something, versus maybe they were, a veteran, or, I lived in the Philippines growing up, and it just so happens that my aunt and my mom had it. So it could be something environmental. So there's a lot of things out there that could be a factor. And like you said, it could be from anywhere, from anyone could have it, whether it's sporadic or familial. So it's something that everyone should be aware. And I will continue to do my best to get the word out there to, unfortunately, those people who have been diagnosed with ALS to try and participate on something. And it's so impactful, not just for ourselves, but for other people. And that's just not for me. I wanted to do this for my children and my family.
And now you understand how long a trial can take and how expensive it can be, because they have to get people to the place to take part in the trial. They have to manufacture the drugs and the chemicals involved. They have to hire the staff, get the data, everything that goes into it. How important is it to fund research, and why should people be advocating for research funding today in 2025 and beyond?
It's so important to be a part of it. While I was in the trial, my friend, involved us on doing the walk, or, as ladies always want to have this jewelry party and stuff. and the people who I was introduced to help with equipment and whatnot. So obviously all of these things cost, and my friends and family really got together to make sure that they were helping for other reasons. Obviously to help me, and it's something that they wanted to help, whether it's just solely for me or for the hospital or other people out there that's giving me the equipment. And it's so important to be a part of it because funding, it's gone to Congress. They're aware now through Medicaid and what's available for us, because it's something that they need support as well as the patients.
Well, you brought up Medicaid, and right now, who knows what's going to happen in Congress between when we record this and when they have votes in Congress about it. But there are talks about cuts to Medicaid, which is really worrisome for a lot of people who care about healthcare. And having access to Medicaid for your own care also helps with research, right? Because someone like you or someone else who has ALS may depend on the care they get through Medicaid so that they can participate in further research. And I see that a lot now, right?
Yeah, it's something that it was a challenge in the beginning. I want to also continue to do that. I actually, not to get off topic, but we're talking about Medicare and life insurance and health. I actually wanted to be licensed so that if anyone out there like me, when in the beginning, who had no direction, you get diagnosed and you still have to continue with your daily stuff and having health care in order to continue to be a part of the research and still not neglect anything that you need, whether it's Medicare or Medicaid. You want to be involved in that. So I did get my license to do that, to make sure that whoever wants information or I can help guide, and at least I'm legally licensed to actually give advice when it comes to that. It is so important to have that. And the funding, we need to support that and make sure that we know and aware of what's going on with that, so I can help other ALS patients with that.
Well, one of the greatest sources of support for ALS has come from the Philadelphia Phillies. They've been supporting ALS United Mid Atlantic since 1984, and we just had our Lou Gehrig Day ALS Awareness Night with the Phillies, where they won in the 11th inning. One of the best games I've ever been to in any sport was this year's Lou Gehrig Day game, and you were there. So, what was it like attending that game, and how do you feel about the support from the Phillies to strike out ALS?
It was such a great opportunity to be a part of it. It's my first time. I just reached out to my social worker, Jamie. And at first, I wanted to just donate. I got the newsletter, I got the email, and let me get the tickets because to actually donate. So I reached out to Jane and said, there are no more tickets. It's like I really wanted to donate whatever I can. Because for a great cause. It's my first time being part of the Lou Gehrig's Day, and I ended up being there and met Mr. Klein and all the social workers, and Donna mentioned Geos. I'm like, oh great, I can't wait to do it. So it's such a huge support from the Phillies, and it's I am so fortunate enough to be a part of it. But it's great that they actually are supporting ALS United with that. Like, again, it's my first time being there, so it was really great to have met other people who are in the same booth where we were, along with the social workers. So thank you guys for doing that for me and being part of it.
One of the things I really appreciate when I go to ALS days with the Phillies, or even just going to Phillies games at all now, is that they really seem to understand accessibility. I think their work with ALS helps with that. How have you seen that? Because whether it's with the Phillies or other things, we have a lot of work to do to make sure the world is more accessible for people with ALS. Because if it's more accessible for people with ALS, then it's accessible for everybody.
Right. That was, I come across a couple of, those challenges with my friends, actually. But the Phillies in that arena really do a great job making sure that we're taken care of and accommodating. And I've gone through other places, which I won't mention, that they tend to forget. And, other people's like, wow, we really take things sometimes for granted, even one step, it's not very convenient, when we're out there. It's already hard to be in a wheelchair and then not having accessibility. But I must say, Phillies does a tremendous job making sure that, they accommodate, the accessibility of the venue or the pavilion.
So Rochelle, I've learned a lot about what you've participated in with research and how new treatments are helping you and people like you with the SOD1 mutation. It's really positive and exciting, especially for someone like me who's lost so many friends to this disease now. What, how can people learn more about your story and follow you?
I am really not in any type of platform. My kids.
You shared with me like 6 links of stories. So I wouldn't ask this about everybody, but you said, here's this podcast, here's this story, here's this story. You can share some things about it.
People have been so helpful. However, I don't have social media. So with the help of Biogen and everyone around, they've exposed it. I have friends that have reached out. I'm like, you were in a New York Post. So I'm like, I wouldn't know. However, I want to make sure that ALS patients reach out to ALS United, wherever they're located, and just reach out to doctors. All the doctors out there know information regarding any type of what you can be involved in, participate in something, whether it's just a blood work, or I know that it's a commitment when you do participate in a trial. However, there are other things that you could do online, questionnaires that I've been, make sure that they send it to me. Just a quick email. It's something that could help all these trials out there. There are so many available out there. And, just by talking to my doctor or other resources like ALS United and the pharmaceutical company, I try to keep in touch with them because it's something that I want to continue to do. And if I don't have social media, other people would have so much access to it. And I hope that they actually take the time to even do a survey of some sort. It could help one, it could help so many people. I just was one of the lucky ones to be able to be a part of this medical breakthrough. It's a miracle drug for me. And I want to make sure that if I could be a part of something in my condition, a lot of people, could participate and help out. There's always a controlled part of, like my other side of the family and friends, they were involved in the controlled part of whatever trial that was, introduced to them. And they were more than welcome to just give blood or do a survey and whatnot. So it could be something small or it could be something big like this one that I was part of.
Well, I feel lucky that I've been able to hear your story as well, and that you're here to help advocate for and educate our patients and their families. It's not just important to educate patients about this, it's important to educate caregivers and spouses and family members so that they'll help empower the patients in their lives, right?
Yes.
So we really appreciate that. And this shows that for all of us who've been working on this cause for many years, or if you're new to ALS, there is hope, there is progress being made. Rochelle is an example of that and the work that she's participated in to advance new treatments for ALS. You have a lot of power as someone living with ALS or as a caregiver to help advance this cause, to help find new treatments. You can visit our website at alsmidatlantic.org or follow us at ALS Mid-Atlantic on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, obviously, TikTok, LinkedIn, whatever. We'll just find some more to follow on. So Michelle might not be on social media, but we're everywhere. Thank you so much, Rochelle, for sharing your story. It makes such a difference. We'll put some of the links in the description here so people can follow it. And Rochelle, I hope to see you at some more ALS United Mid-Atlantic events in the future.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. It was nice meeting you.
It's nice meeting you too. And again, subscribe, leave your comments, share this, because by raising more awareness about ALS and about our work at ALS United Mid-Atlantic, we can do more for people like Rochelle and the thousands of people living with ALS today. Thank you so much.